Tell the truth. Doesn't his very existence diminish you? Diminish us all?
Lex Luthor believes himself to be the greatest representative that humanity has to offer. A genius who is well versed in science, math, in civics, and in philosophy. A man who has built up his body physically to be strong and healthy. A man who understands and who knows what humanity needs. Luthor's family origins differ from story to story, but they are all similar. In Secret Origins, Lex's father succumbed to a heart condition. In BIrthright, he took his father's life after a kryptonite-based explosion. And in Luthor's Unauthorized Biography, Lex once again took his father's life. And in two of these stories, his father's life insurance kickstarted his future. One thing that remains consistent through these origins is that Lex Luthor's father was consistently abusive towards him and is an alcoholic in most of these stories. Another semi-consistent bit is that Lex and Superman's stories are usually intertwined. Clark and Lex grew up in Smallville and became friends for a short while. Lex was an outcast. His personality is always abrasive and snobbish, but Clark always sees past it. Lex Luthor, in all iterations, always knew from the very beginning that he would be somebody and he would forge his destiny to become great. In Secret Origin, he says that society has been led by a handful of those brave, strong, and smart enough to shape its history. Lex Luthor shaped his history by transforming Metropolis. Much as Gotham has taken on the personality of being haunting and parasitic, Metropolis is similar and yet different. The city of tomorrow has taken on Lex's personality, it seems. A city to chase dreams and the American dream, but through slimy ways. A city that would bleed anyone dry if you could give them a chance. Quote, "The people here only care about what you can do for them." We all know that Lex Luthor despises Superman, but to understand why, we need to get a clue as to how Luthor thinks, how he views the world. Lex Luthor, as mentioned, is a genius, but more than that, he is a man who understands men. Leonard Finkelman, in an analysis of Lex and Superman, compares Luthor to philosopher Thomas Hobbes, and finds similarities in the way they view human nature in a pessimistic light. Hobbes' belief about the state of nature is that humans need social organization, because without it, mankind would descend into chaos and war, their natural state. Quote, "People would live in fear and danger of violent death. Life of man would be solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short." Luthor, in essence, agrees with this thought, but not because he's seen or lived through the bloody English Civil War like Hobbes, but because Luthor believes himself to be so much smarter, so much more advanced than the knuckle-draggers he calls other humans. Luthor's fear is that Superman will one day turn on humanity, so Lex will be the one to save humans and defeat Superman because he will not turn on his fellow man. Lex essentially feels that he is above his fellow man, above his constraints to his nature. And he creates the, quote, "greatest city in the world." In Secret Origin, he owns 78% of Metropolis. In Forever Evil, 90% of Metropolis belongs to Luthor. Every morning, Lex comes out from his LexCorp building that literally looks down on people and delivers a speech granting his citizens a chance at happiness. The LexCorp lottery, a chance at a job. And I love these iterations where Lex appears to be this kind, benevolent leader that they need. In Lex Luthor Man of Steel, he treats everyone like equals. Even the custodian, Lex treats him like everybody else. Of course, no one is on Luthor's level. It's so obviously a front, but to this custodian, to the people who line up every day for the LexCorp lottery, and for those who look up to see the tallest building in Metropolis standing as a beacon, shining bright, lighting the way for mankind everywhere, Lex essentially is their savior. And to those who don't see that, to those who oppose him, he eliminates them. Simple as that. Whether it be the Daily Planet who he's actively trying to purge and buy out, the detective who flies too close to LexCorp and its shady dealings, or the former LexCorp employee who spills secrets on the company. He will destroy and eliminate anyone who opposes him. And so, with no one standing against him, Luthor ends up appearing like a savior, and people treat him as such. It's why Finkelman believes that Luthor has this Hobbesian belief in humanity. Lex discusses Isaac Newton, Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, the individuals who have shaped history. He wants to be recognized and immortalized just like them. But more than them, he wants to be deified. the first man, an emphasis on the man, to become a god. And then enter the Man of Steel. When Superman joins the fray, when he takes refuge in a city Lex has already marked and claimed as his own, all of his work is threatened. Luthor's very identity is threatened. At the end of the day, people choose their heroes. It's the people who make a city. What was once Lex's unambiguous stomping grounds becomes Superman's home. It becomes his city. The people begin to look up, not to LexCorp and Lex's daily speeches and lotteries, but instead to look up to the man who, quote, isn't actually a man. They look up to the, quote, it, and they are saved. Superman has statues built in his honor by the people. Lex Luthor has countless hospitals and schools with his name on the doorway, all paid for by Lex Luthor. These statues never costed Superman a penny. Luthor loses all control and he devotes everything to destroying Superman. Sarah K. Donovan and Nicholas Richardson argue that Luthor is an existentialist and most closely resembles Nietzsche in his philosophy. To quote them, Nietzsche rejects metaphysical explanations of life, such as saying that things happen as the result of God's will, and suggests we try to understand the world in terms of power relationships. Heidegger, interpreting Nietzsche, added on that believers seek to maintain the culture status quo because of the promise of individual eternal rest and comfort in the afterworld. If people are to aim any kind of deification, it must not be in the other world, but instead in this world, the world of becoming. And that right there is the exact reason Luthor gives for why he despises Superman. And it's a decent point. Luthor claims that the existence and lionization of Superman inherently weakens humans. He fears that mankind will become complacent, lazy, and over-reliant on Superman, that reaching for the sky is a human desire and not a reality. Humanity will stagnate if they have someone who can actually reach the sky for them. Lex says, quote, I'm not interested in bringing him down, but obsessed with bringing us up. All of us, everyone deserves a chance at greatness. All that takes is the belief that it exists. But Superman's existence threatens not just that belief, but our existence. I believe there's something inherently dangerous when something real becomes mythic. I believe when that happens, we lose the part of ourselves that yearns to be great. Because when faced with a myth, we can't win. So the mythic must be exposed for what it is, so that we can believe in ourselves. Because it's only what's in us, the drive to be mythic, that matters. Lex believes Superman does not inspire anybody to be a better human because he does things that are extraordinary. He does things that are not human. Ironically though, in his pursuit of being the greatest human he could possibly be, Lex wants to be deified. If anything, he wants to be Superman. And in the Black Ring, he admits it, under Wonder Woman's lasso of truth. He is so deeply jealous of Superman because he is more of a human than Lex is, despite not being born on this planet. Lex cannot become this human ideal because he lacks the ability to examine himself. Deeper than his quote love for humanity and what it means to be human, Luthor's identity as man's only hope and mankind's greatest gift is ripped away by the Man of Steel. In Luthor's Unauthorized Biography, he says that he chose to become a god, that he controls human lives instead of being controlled, which is why he cannot abide Superman. Quote, there is only room for one god on this planet. Luthor is jealous and angry that Superman has uprooted his place as mankind's savior. Angry that the Metropolis that he built, that belongs to him, he says, has turned on him. Luthor is particularly hurt by Superman because from his perspective, Superman views him the way he views ants, the way he views everybody else, as lesser than, as a group that needs guidance and authority. Like the Hobbesian belief, they need organization. Luthor feels inferior to Superman and he's angry because that's the only person on the planet who could make Lex feel inferior, and he despises that feeling. In Lex Luthor Man of Steel, we see from Lex's perspective how he sees Big Blue. And it's my favorite Lex comic for that reason, because when he sees Superman, the Man of Steel's eyes are always glowing, as if he's ready to melt anything on sight, ready to flip that switch and turn on humanity at any moment's notice. He's monstrous. He's truly alien-like, from Luthor's point of view. He bares his teeth in these panels, and he looks down on humanity. He flies over Lex condescendingly, as if he were truly the savior of man. What redemption do you offer them, he asks, as if he were the champion of humanity. A man who values humanity would value human life, and Lex Luthor does not. Luthor is certain that Superman could not have been raised here, because like the Hobbesian belief, Luthor has a pessimistic view of human nature. Luthor is waiting for the other shoe to drop. He believes that men do not do things out of the goodness of their own hearts. That Superman does things because he expects something. He is waiting for Superman to eventually try and enslave the planet, try and dominate the world. Superman is a threat, he urges the public, because he knows that fear is the quickest way to people's hearts. Quote, the only reason Superman doesn't completely dominate humanity is that he uses his powers for the good of humankind rather than to dominate, and writers regard this as one of the primary reasons that Luthor cannot help but view Superman as an alien. As Hobbes argued, humans are essentially limited in their willingness to help others, and this author believes Luthor comes from the same line of thinking. According to Luthor, if humans had Superman's powers, their nature would dictate them to rule the world. It's interesting. Even Lois has a similar line in For All Seasons, when she says, quote, he can do anything he wants. Fly, lift cars, bounce bullets off his chest, and he decides to be a hero. We live in a world where nobody sticks their neck out for anybody. We lie to each other, we brutalize each other, and we kill each other. But there's this man who sticks his neck way, way out for us. Lois ultimately ends up not believing in men, but believing in Superman, in a way that Luthor uniquely does not. But there is a part of Lex that is as in awe of Superman as everybody else, fascinated that someone can be that good. In the Black Ring, Lex does everything to try and make Superman break, to the point where he simply just asks the Man of Steel, why don't you break? A small part of Luthor loves the Man of Steel, and Luthor loathes that part of himself. Lex wants the power that Superman has and hates that Superman is still a good man despite having all that power. He believed that he was the only exception, that he was a cut above the knuckle-draggers that are human beings, he calls them. Lex both hates and is so jealous of Superman that he tries to create his own on a few occasions. In Lex Luthor Man of Steel, he literally creates Hope as a Superman replacement, co-opting and perverting Superman's symbol as hope and creating hope for himself. And Lex explores that replacement, even falling in love and sleeping with his creation. Superboy, Connor Kent, the teenage clone, has Lex's DNA infused alongside Superman's. Luthor's most popular Superman clone, though, is Bizarro. And through all of these creations, Lex's feelings about the Man of Steel are complicated, because he doesn't actually hate Superman, but hates that Superman is better than him. He hates that Superman is a better man than he is, and from his perspective is not even a man. Forever Evil shows this side of Lex when he creates Bizarro, and he begins to feel for the clone, growing attached to him, even trying to help him, even feeling for it. If Lex can get in on that power, or at least be able to control it, then Superman becomes okay. So here we learn that Lex is not actually focused on the advancement of humanity, because only he is allowed to lead the world into a new age. He needs the glory, he needs the accolades, he needs the love, because he's never had it. Lex's upbringing is often one of isolation. He was a lonely kid because he was different. He was snobbish and conceited, but he was also just a kid who wanted to belong, who wanted to have friends before he became Luthor. People did not understand Lex. They feared what they did not understand, and he understood, as a genius child would, that the face that he always saw was fear, and his money created another social barrier. But even with that, Clark notes that Lex chose to be alone. His father beat him and his mother was rarely in the picture, and so Lex found his place in the world by becoming someone important. In Superman Birthright, Lex snaps at a machine he built that doesn't work. Quote, if it's not right, then it's worthless, stupid and worthless. To Lex, his only worth in this world was being right, being correct. Which is why Lex's most childish and most deep-seated reason for hating Superman is that Metropolis was his place in the world. He had people to talk to, people who listened. He belonged somewhere and it belonged to him, finally. And Superman took that away from him. In Superman Adventures, Lex spends $10 billion a year trying to find ways to take down Superman. And in so many stories, All-Star Superman, Birthright, Secret Origin, Luthor blames Superman for him not being able to help the world. If Superman weren't around, Lex claims that he'd have cured cancer, that he'd have solved all of the world's problems. And yet, when Superman does vanish for a year, Lex does none of these things. When Superman asks Lex to do it, Luthor spits in the Man of Steel's face. In the Black Ring, when he gains infinite power, the power to bring happiness to everyone in the universe, he wastes it by trying to kill Superman. Brainiac in that same story says that, quote, "Even pursuing what for others would be a quest of self-realization, you have never successfully examined your own character." Lex is a genius, one of the smartest people alive, with all of the money and the resources to help people. But this critical lack of self-examination leads him to blame Superman for every single one of his shortcomings. His ego is so large that it gets in the way of him doing anything significant. That's what it comes down to. He tries to convince himself that it's philosophical and deep, and it appears so, but what it is that he is threatened by someone stronger than him, and he hates the way that Superman looks at him. He loathes that feeling. We all fall short of that sickening inhuman perfection, that impossible ideal. There's no deep psychology behind the struggle between Superman and me. It's simple. How would you feel if someone deliberately stood in your way over and over again?
Next to Superman, even Lex Luthor's greatness is overshadowed.